There is a race to wealth that very few talk about. And the reason why very few talk about it is because very many people make it seem as though wealth is a marathon, but it's not. And it's interesting when you think about the fact that people would operate differently if they recognized wealth differently. So if you, like I did a number of years ago, believe that wealth is actually a marathon, you will brace yourself, you will pace yourself, and you probably won't take a short period of time to actually face yourself. Because what you'll do is you'll tell yourself again and again that this is a marathon. You've got time. It's going to be dealt with over time. You're going to figure it out over time. And one day you'll make it work. I want you to picture this for a moment. Picture your life and everything that you currently think or perceive is good. Okay? Now, I'm a reader of the Bible. In the Bible says in Genesis chapter 1, when God was creating everything, he created the land, he created the animals, and he says it's good, right? So let's do kind of like a mini audit in our own life right now. And this is going to help us understand first our own approach to wealth, but more importantly, the approach we should have towards wealth. So when you take a moment and picture your life and think of all of the things that you would classify as good in your life, the next thing I want you to ask yourself is, are there any of those things that you've just considered as good that you wish took longer to get, or that you wish you didn't get when you got, and instead you got them a year later, 2 years later, 10 years later? Now, let me take a very basic example, right? A driver's license. We are allowed to drive because we have driver's licenses. Now, interestingly enough, if I didn't get my driver's license when I got my driver's license. Now, for me, my situation with the driver's license is slightly different because I felt like I could actually competently drive quite a while before I had my driver's license. Okay. But either way, that makes it for me even more of a burning, insatiable, why didn't I get my license earlier? Right. And it's interesting I say that because often with things that we then achieve, we often say to ourselves, why didn't I do that earlier? I want you to think back to the first time you bought a home, right? You probably had that epiphany. Why didn't I do this earlier? Yes, it was arduous. Yes, it was strenuous. Yes, it took a lot more out of me, maybe financially and definitely mentally, and definitely in terms of organization and documentation than I expected or planned at the time. But that was my first time. But nonetheless, after going through that process, I say to myself, why didn't I do this earlier? And we will find that to be the truth and the case with many areas of our lives where we deem something as good. I often say to my wife as a joke, right? I say to her, why didn't you let me find you earlier? And the reason I'm sharing this is because one of the principles that I have come to learn and discover, maybe through my reading of the Bible, maybe through my experience of life whilst being a student of the Bible, is there is nothing in our lives that is good that we want to take longer to get. Okay, and I just want you to think about that and resonate with that and ruminate on that for a moment or two. Is there anything in your life that is good that you wish took longer to get? And I'm close to confident for me that that answer is no. Every single thing in my life that is good, I wish came sooner. I wish came earlier. I wish came faster. And herein lies the nebulous lie that many people have been sold and as a result subscribe. And that lie is that some of the most important things in our lives are marathons instead of those things actually being a race. Because the reality is this, the reason why wealth is more of a race than a marathon is because the earlier and sooner you're able to acquire wealth, the longer and the stronger you get to enjoy that wealth. You see, if you are marathoning to wealth and achieve the level of wealth that you desire in your last waking hour, then you have literally less than an hour to utilize that and to see its actual potential or power, right? Now, why is this so important? This is one of the reasons why this is important. Because if you see wealth as a marathon, the journey of wealth, the accumulation of wealth, the structure of wealth as a marathon, what will happen is you will let yourself off the hook. What will happen is you won't take what some people will call the risks, what other people will call the opportunities. You won't place yourself forward. Instead, you'll be consistently and constantly pulling yourself back. You won't say, I can do this. Instead, you'll be watching other people as they go through this. And these are the differences between people who say, no, wealth is a race versus people who say wealth is a marathon. Now, there's two important caveats, one which is primarily important, so I'm going to go into that first, and then the second one, which I'll share after. And that first caveat, which is super key, is this is not a promotion or advocation or me motivating you to get into hustle culture. Hustle culture is so far from what I am speaking about, okay? Being on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, working 90, 80, 100-hour weeks to become wealthy. Like, let me put it simply, making money your God is not what I'm speaking about, okay? Worshipping money is not what I'm speaking about. More accurately, as the Bible calls it, making money something you love is not what I'm speaking about. What I'm speaking about is just having a clear, conscious understanding that the pursuit of wealth is not one that is a marathon. It's actually a race. And the moment you recognize it's a race, guess what? You don't have to love money. You don't have to covet money. You don't have to chase money. You don't have to engage in hustle culture. You just have a different found understanding. And now you have a different found understanding, you will start to implement approaches that are more resonant, more akin, more favorable to the real ideology of how wealth works than the ideology of how you have thought it works. Now, let me give you a quick example. If you are someone who generates £50,000 every single year, okay? Now, if you don't spend a single pound, at the end of 10 years, you've accumulated £500,000, right? Now let's extrapolate that more. If you double that at the end of 20 years, you would have accumulated £1 million. Now, £1 million may not be wealth or, the kind of wealth we're talking about to any one stretch of imagination, but it's a good rounded number for us to do this kind of mathematical expression, right? So at £50,000 each and every year, over a 20-year period, that's £1 million, assuming you do not spend any of that money. Now, that person has £1 million. The great question we could ask is that person rich? Okay. Now, some people will say, yes, they've got £1 million. Other people would say, well, it took them 20 years to get it. Okay. Now, on another side of things, let's say there was a person who was generating £500,000 a year. So in 2 years, they generate £1 million, okay? Is that person rich? Does that person have a command of wealth? And obviously the answer is going to more likely be yes to person B than it would be to person A. Now, let's create person C. What if person C found a way to generate £1 million in a 12-month period? Question again, is that person rich? Is that person have a stronger command of wealth than person A and person B? And the answer is of course. Now, here's the key. All three generated the same amount of money. So when we understand that all three generated the same amount of money, the good key to ask ourselves, the key question to ask ourselves is, what is the difference between all three? What's the difference between A, B, and C? And the only difference is the one factor that is what determines whether wealth is actually a marathon or whether it's actually a sprint, and that is time. The only difference in those three expressions was time. The first person took 20 years to accumulate a certain amount of revenue. The second person took 2 years to accumulate the same amount of revenue. And the third person, person C, took 1 year, 12 months to accumulate the same amount of revenue. They have a stronger command of wealth because of the factor of time. Now, why is this important? This is why it's important. It's important because that illustration helps us to start to see what is actually important in the pursuit of wealth, what's actually important in the structuring of our affairs so that wealth can work for us rather than us having to work for wealth. So I hear you asking the question, Samuel, what is that key? What is the thing that's literally the hidden missing gem inside of this puzzle, okay? And what it is systems and structures and sequences. And that's the thing that you and I would do well to quote unquote race towards. What are the right systems to put in place to assist you and I to accumulate wealth? What are the right sequences that we need to get into and generate revenue from in order to accumulate the wealth that we desire? Now, I've been banging on for over a decade about one of those systems, and that is cash flow. You and I would do well to have a cash flow generating system inside of our business, inside of our life, inside of our wealth accumulation process. Why? Because that's something that you should find as fast as possible so you can utilize it for as long as possible. Your cash flow generation system. That's a key fulcrum to your wealth. Again, let's take a step back. If, like me, a number of years ago, you started working, you started your professional working life. When I started working as an employee, I would go to work Monday, typically all the way to Friday, and I would get paid for the hours in which I show up at work, which means a number of things. One thing it means is if I don't go to work, I don't get paid, typically. The second thing it means is if I don't go to work for the most amount of time I can, then I don't get paid the most amount of money that I can through means of that job. Second thing of significance. Now, the third key of significance is all my revenue was attached to that specific employer's satisfaction, right? So my wealth was in the hands of an employer. Now, the challenge with all of that is, first and foremost, I'm capped. And if you haven't seen my video on the glass ceiling, that's a great video to go and watch. You can literally just search on YouTube, Samuel I Can Win space glass ceiling. And that video is super clear on the purpose of a glass ceiling, how they are constructed, etc. So that's one side of it, the glass ceiling, right? But the essence, which is the real issue here, is the fact that if I've got that as my system for cash flow, which is go to work and being there for as long as possible and being there to satisfy one particular individual determines my income generation, my cash flow creation, then I need to reevaluate that. And the reason I need to reevaluate that is because what happens if a time comes where I can't get to work? Okay? You don't get paid. What happens if a time comes, like a time that comes to mind right now? I remember I was working in a specific school as a secondary and A-level math teacher at the time. And I went to work. At the time, my wife was pregnant at home. I went to work. Robbie had messaged me. My queen basically messaged me and said to me that she's been feeling some cramps. Okay, and she was about 7 months pregnant. She wasn't full term at the time, but she was saying she was feeling some form of cramps, etc. And I think it was our second child, so I was still new to being a dad, like, because my first child was only like a year old at the time, or a little younger than a year old. And I say this because I know many people in the world think, oh, when you've been a dad and you've had a child and your child's more than 3 months old, like, you know what it is to be a dad. No, like, this was our second child, and now being a dad of 6, I now understand being a dad of 2, there's still things that can be new, right? So basically, I was fairly new as a parent. My wife was pregnant with our second child. She was experiencing some form of cramps or something at the time, and some uncomfortability at the time. And I remember I was just like, okay, cool, like praying for her at work. Like I was at work, I was praying for her, just hoping she'd be okay. And I think lunchtime came, and at lunchtime I started speaking to the second in command in my department. And it was a maths department, and I was just sharing with him, okay, yeah, my wife was mentioning that she was feeling a few uncomfortabilities earlier today. It's really hard because I don't know what to do. There's nothing I can do. I'm just at work. So he says to me, go home. And I'm like, I'm just telling him for like, not sociable, casual conversation, but I'm kind of like, there's no one else I could tell, right? I'm at work, right? So I'm kind of just telling him as a casual colleague share kind of thing. And he says to me, like, go home. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, go home. He's like, she's more important. Like, what's happening with her is more important. Now, mind you, my second in command in the department was telling me to go home, right? So this doesn't fit the narrative exactly of what I'm sharing. But nonetheless, I did end up going home that day. Robbie was fine. She ended up being fine that day. But the point I'm making is like, that could have resulted in me being paid a half day instead of me being paid a full day. If it was something where I needed to leave, but my workplace wasn't open to me leaving. Okay. Now, why is this important? This is important because most people, like I had done, have constructed their wealth generation in this marathon fashion where it is about them showing up. It is about them being there from X time to A time. It is about them satisfying a particular individual rather than them thinking to themselves, is there a system? Is there a sequence? Is there a setting which I can plug into as soon as possible, which can assist me to create wealth, or at least begin the journey of creating wealth without having to A, be there myself, or B, be there for X time to A time. Like, and all of us know about assets. We all know about assets, whether it be a stock asset that you pay for once but gets you paid for life, or whether it be a property asset like I'm often talking about on this channel, where you pay for once, but again, pays you for life, or whether it be some other form of asset in the form of a business or something. Why is it that we don't recognize as early as possible that the key for you and I on the journey of wealth, which unfortunately isn't a marathon, even though it's missold as a marathon, that we would do well to start to develop systems, to start to develop sequences, and to start to develop ourselves into settings which can assist us in our wealth creation. Now, the key to all of this is this. It's understanding that it's not about running towards money. That's where people get confused. That's where people often lose. The Bible tells us better than I could even explain it. It says, for the love of money is the root to all evil. And it even goes on to say some very more pertinent things about that. But the essence is there. If you're running to chase money, you're going to have a problem, honey. But if you understand that it's not about the money, it's about the sequences, it's about the systems, it's about the settings, it's about the structures that we need to run to find and discover so we can start to use them and allow them to uncover the kind of wealth that we've been waiting to recover. It's about the systems. And the biggest thing that I see again and again and again is people committing to be ignorant about the systems, but assuming that one day they'll get the benefit of them same systems. You see, I don't know if anyone's ever said this to you, but I'm going to be super transparent as I share this with you. Every system that you and I fail to use to assist our wealth creation is a system that's being actively used against us in our wealth creation. And just to give you a quick example so you know exactly what I'm talking about. The system of compound interest is working against every single human being who hasn't found a way to get it to work for them. Just one simple system. Einstein said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Okay? And Einstein was a smart guy. So if one of the smartest guys who ever lived said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, surely it would be of value for us to research that system, discover, if we haven't already, that system, and take and develop in our own revenue sources that system so that we can then deploy in our wealth generation that system. And that's just one. There's many more, but that's just one system which, if we do not learn to discover, develop, and deploy, it's going to be continually used against us. Think about the bank where you have placed some of your money. The bank does not put your money in another bank. The bank does not say to themselves, this is the best way to use money that has ever existed. Therefore, every time someone puts $1, a pound, a euro in our bank, we're going to bank it in another bank. No, they don't do that. Let me tell you what they do instead. They invite you to put your money in the bank. And then when you put your money in the bank, they go and do something completely different with your money than bank it. They go and invest it. And when they go and invest it, guess what they do? They make multiples on your money and pay you crumbs for the money. Giving them the privilege to generate wealth, they go and capitalize utilizing one of these features I'm talking about, this system of compound interest, and compounding the money that they take from you and I, they are able to generate money for themselves, generate more wealth, and pay you back your money with a little bit on top for yourself. If we took time to really think about the reality of this process, if we took time to really understand how compound interest, as just one example system, is being radically used against people who may have an interest in creating wealth, but unfortunately they've convinced themselves that the journey of wealth is a marathon rather than a sprint, guess what would happen? We would literally rewrite the script. And we'd rewrite the script to one which actually does have a true happily ever after. Because the happily ever after wouldn't take the 40-40-40 plan. And for those of you who don't know what the 40-40-40 plan is, that's when you work 40 hours a week for 40,000 a year, hoping and praying that in 40 years, you'll be able to live on 40% of what you made in one of your best years, okay? You wouldn't be signing up to that. Instead, you'd be saying, I'm done with that. So the compound interest trap is just one of the traps of many other systems that are out there that can be utilized to assist you to generate wealth in a faster pace. The moment you recognize that the systems, the sequences, and the settings are what we need to race to secure rather than just the wealth. So with that being said, let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to do further videos on some of these other systems that are keys to wealth creation. If you got value from this video, you know what to do. Hit the like, press subscribe, and maybe share this with someone else who's similar to you who might find this valuable too. All right. This is Something I Can Win. I'm signing out. And if you got tons of value from this video, go watch the next one and I'll see you another time. Let's go.